Hi friends, I'm Professor Tech, and today I'm going to be breaking down the top 5 things that you have to do whenever you first get your Steam Deck in order to have the best experience possible. So you got your Steam Deck, and regardless of whether or not you bought the $399 model or you went all out and got the $649 model like I have here, there are a handful of things that you'll want to do in order to get the most out of your Steam Deck and elevate your experience beyond the vanilla experience when the Steam Deck's just out of the box, which is still a pretty phenomenal experience, all things considered. These 5 things are not required to have a great experience with Steam Deck, but they are minimal effort download changes and tweaks you can make even with virtually no knowledge of custom computing or custom software or hardware modifications. So this is a very beginner-friendly guide that maybe even some advanced users might find useful too. First thing, purchase a large capacity SD card. The beauty of modern technology is that we can fit so much data into such a tiny space and with such great speed. And with recent decreases in memory cost, now is the best time ever to get a 512 gigabyte or even a 1 terabyte micro SD card for your Steam Deck. For significantly less than the amount charged for the next level Steam Deck, you can get anywhere from 2 to 15 times the memory capacity of the base level Steam Deck, which you can use to store more games and apps. I personally recommend either the SanDisk Ultra or the Extreme cards. I've not noticed any major difference in the performance between the two, even though one is rated higher than the other. However, using slower cards or those made from a not as reputable manufacturer may result in slower performance or even operational issues. I know this because it happened to me, so learn from my lesson and buy from a reputable manufacturer when it comes to micro SD cards. They're very fragile technology. Also, I would advise looking up tutorials on formatting your SD card for Steam Deck whenever you place it into your unit. This is because I did accidentally brick an SD card during the formatting process the first time that I did this, so please don't make the same mistake as me. I lost a 1 terabyte card that way. There are reports that there is a way to recover SD cards that are bricked through this system and from this error. As this is a beginner guide, I would recommend just following along with the tutorial for ease and for comfort, and that way you're not going to have as many issues. But speaking of comfort, buying a case or a protective skin for your Steam Deck. While I don't currently have a case on my deck or a skin, I have used them before, and I'm actually waiting to receive a skin from Dbrand that I'll be applying to my unit. It took me a while to find a skin and a case that I really liked, and after trying out a few friends' Steam Decks that had Dbrand skins, I found that I really liked the feel and the comfort of their skins, and that the leather skin added to the deck while still giving it a kind of classy but different look. Now, there are several different manufacturers that make skins for the Steam Deck as well as several cases, and while there is no way for me to possibly be able to afford at this time trying out all of the different cases, those made by Dbrand are great, and to a lesser extent, as well as a more affordable extent, those made by JSOX are passable and some are even fantastic. So if you're worried that adding a case or a skin to your Steam Deck will cause it to become hotter faster, I wouldn't worry too much. While yes, anytime that you add more layers and more substances, that can act as an insulator, most of the time those that are made by the manufacturers above are so thin that there's negligible difference, and at least from what I've seen, I've not noticed any difference at all whenever testing out my friends' units. Cases, on the other hand, could potentially cause heating issues if they don't properly leave gaps for the air intake and exhaust, push hot air in or out. And certain rubbers or other materials can actually create a more noticeable heating effect. I plan on ordering a Project Kill Switch from Dbrand in the next few months once a few of them become available. So if you're interested in learning more about accessories for the Steam Deck or even accessories for the Nintendo Switch or other pieces of technology, make sure to get subscribed to the channel because I release a new video every week discussing a variety of different tech-related topics, tips, and techniques. And eventually I'll be making things like gaming content as well, but I'm working on that. Give me some time. Speaking of working on something, getting other launchers downloaded and working on the Steam Deck takes a bit of work, but it is totally doable, and I'm gonna walk you through one here today. Chances are, if you're buying the Steam Deck, you may already have a collection of Steam, Epic Games, GOG, Rockstar, Ubisoft, etc. Games from various launchers aren't natively supported on the Steam Deck. Or you may just own these games, receive them using a different storefront due to a sale or just being a masochist because you really like using Ubisoft's launcher. I don't know. I'm not one to judge, but I am judging you a little bit. But some of you may be using the Ubisoft launcher or others that don't have a native Linux-based distro or app. However, there is a solution. It does take a few steps, but it's something that you can easily get through, and I'm going to explain them here. And if you're interested in learning more step-by-step tutorials, make sure to leave a like and leave a comment below on the type of tutorials that you would like to see. Before getting started, you'll want to grab a keyboard and a mouse. Today, I'm not going to be doing that just for ease of use, but you do want to get one that supports Bluetooth or that you have a USB dongle that's compatible with the USB-C on the Steam Deck. If you don't have those, that's totally okay. It may make this more of a headache than it should be. If you don't, rest easy that I did all of these things the first time without a keyboard. You'll be going to the desktop mode on the Steam Deck to go to Ubisoft's website and download the Ubisoft launcher for Windows. Then, once the exe file is downloaded, go to where it's downloaded and move it to a folder that you can remember the location of, because you'll need to come back to it here in just a little bit if it doesn't automatically add whenever we try the add to Steam Deck option. Now, you can try right-clicking on the exe file, clicking add to Steam. Sometimes this works, sometimes it doesn't. I've seen mixed results. So if it doesn't work, the other method is to open Steam while still in desktop mode, going into your library page and clicking add a game in the bottom left corner. Then click add a non-Steam game. From here, navigate and select the exe file that you just downloaded. It will most likely show up as ubisoftlauncher.exe or some longer, more complicated name. So you'll want to remember the name, but alternatively, you could just rename the launcher exe file before you add it so that it shows up a little bit easier and more conveniently for yourself. Now, change the compatibility layer that this file has in Steam to Proton Experimental. This will allow you to launch the game and it should open in a new window. If you're not using a keyboard and mouse, this is the part where the Steam Deck can start to be kind of sticky if you're not using those peripherals, so I really do advise using those, but if you don't have them, use patience and keep trying. It does work. Like I mentioned, the first time I did this, I did it using only the Steam Deck. I didn't use any additional peripherals to make this work. In the new window, you can log into your Ubisoft account and download the games from there. The benefit of adding this item to Steam through some of the above two methods is that it will allow you to launch the Ubisoft launcher while still in the game mode on the deck. That way you don't have to constantly boot into desktop mode. You can stay in game mode once we get through these initial steps. Quite frankly, is this a perfect system? Absolutely not, but it is a fairly simple way to work around being stuck with only Steam storefront games. Other solutions do exist, and I've seen other YouTubers and other tutorials that walk people through that, but thus far I found that this one is the most consistent and works virtually every time. If you have better methods, please feel free to let me know down in the comments below. I would love to hear about them. Speaking of better methods, you can optimize your Steam Deck's power consumption by changing a few settings quite easily with one built-in system while you're still in game mode. The Steam Deck is an amazing device for the price that it is, and the fact that it receives consistent and regular support from Valve in the form of updates, added features, and feature enhancements just goes to show you how much they've invested into this portable handheld PC. But that doesn't mean that this first generation Steam Deck is without faults that are common in first generation products, and one of those, in my opinion, happens to be the battery life. While you can get a reasonable 2 to 3 hours of play out of most games running at a fairly consistent 60 frames per second on the system, one way that you can notably increase that time is by lowering the max frame rate to 40 frames per second. This will allow the system to allocate less resources to producing more frames, equaling higher battery life. Alternatively, if the battery life isn't bothering you, or you're someone who's playing using a dock, or while plugged into a charger, you could mess around with the graphical fidelity settings in each game to get a slightly more visually appealing performance in your games. To lower the frame rate, simply click on the 3-dot button in the bottom right of the deck. Scroll to the battery icon menu. From there, you can toggle the performance overlay on so that you're able to see how many frames per second, how much power usage, and other systems are running in the background while you're playing your games, so that you can start to tweak things and really monitor your performance one-to-one. You're also able to customize things such as power delivery, maximum frame rate, and that's actually what we're going to be adjusting. I leave all of my games in 40 frames per second, but as you can see from the menu, you can configure games on a per game basis. So if you really want 60 FPS, maybe you're even okay with a lower than 40 frames per second option, you can set that for specific games without having to go into the settings each and every time before you launch a game. This is super convenient. Chances are you aren't using the Steam Deck for intense Twitch-based shooters, so lowering it to 40 frames per second works just fine and still retains a lot of of the smoothness that's much less notable than you would think. And for classic games, 40 frames per second is even higher than some of those games ran natively on their original hardware, so it's already an elevated and enhanced experience just running at a consistent and smooth 40. Speaking of classic games, moving on to my favorite thing that you should do as soon as you get a Steam Deck. Installing EmuDeck on the Steam Deck so that you can play your classic collection of games from your legally obtained ROM library. This has to be one of, if not the easiest installations for any set of emulators on any system that I've ever used, including Windows PCs. The fluidity of whoever created this app is just amazing, and I will definitely leave more information down below. First, launch the Steam Deck into desktop mode and go to Firefox or your preferred browser and visit emudeck.com. From there, go to the top right of the page and click on the download link. At the top of the following page is an installer download link. As the page says, you'll only need to download this once, as the app can self or manually auto update from within the app itself. So it makes updating this app and new configurations so much easier. Once you've downloaded the item, simply launch the application and follow the instructions for how to install the required emulators and point them towards your ROM library. You also will want to add EmuDeck to your Steam library, which is an option during the installation process, which will allow you to boot into EmuDeck from within the game mode side of the system without having to relaunch into desktop mode, which is a big preference of mine. I don't like to go into desktop mode unless I absolutely have to. And that's virtually it. EmuDeck will download and install the necessary emulators, point them towards your ROM library as you indicated, and install itself as a launchable app in game mode. You may run into small issues that are common anytime that you emulate a system, such as having to change settings in, for example, DuckStation to allow for digital to analog controls for some PS1 games to be turned on. But you can update this by launching into desktop mode, launching the specific emulator whose settings you want to update, save those settings, and you're off. It'll automatically update on the game mode side of things. I've found that virtually any system up to the PlayStation 3 works nearly flawlessly. With some minor issues with certain titles and a little bit of tweaking, you should have no problem. And I found that even some PS3 games run decently well with slight tweaks, as we mentioned in the last topic. In short, the Steam Deck is an absolute powerhouse for the $399 introductory pricing that it sells for. Like, there's nothing that beats it. One last thing before we wrap up though, I wanted to say thank you for all the comments and suggestions that you all have been contributing over the last few weeks. They've been fundamental in helping me find new ways to shoot, new ways to produce my content, and I'm immensely grateful for the opportunity to continue making things for you all. I'm glad to see that people are viewing the content. So long story short, thank you all for watching. Thank you for leaving feedback. I appreciate all of the constructive criticism, and in the future I will be making videos about other types of technology. I know that I've predominantly been focusing on the Steam Deck, but I'm really excited about this device. It's one of my favorite things that I own. I talk about it every single time I get a chance to with someone who's never seen one before, so I hope you enjoy my Steam Deck videos. I thank you all so much for being here, for supporting the channel. I will see you all next week, and I hope that you take care. Bye, friends.